Welcome to the American Comedy Company All-American All-Comedy Podcast. This is the podcast where we're going to dive into the lives and careers of stand-up comedians living and performing in a post-COVID world. I'm your host, Gordon Downs. With me, ACC employee and sound guy and stand-up comedian Nathan Driver.
How's it going? Hey,
thank you,
to be here.
Nathan. Me and you have been doing some of the shows here at ACC. This is the first club to be open on the West Coast during the pandemic of 2020. How have you been throughout the pandemic? Like, what is your daily routine been?
I'm a work from home guy. I got lucky. I didn't lose my job or anything.
So you don't have that sweet EDD debit card?
No. I'm technically earning my money, I guess. I just sit at Zoom meetings. I went back into the office this week. This is our first week back, but I've mostly just been hanging out. Glad that stand-up's back. I was making TikToks for a while. I was going insane.
That's right. Plug your TikTok right now for the
no
everything,
one
so
should.
that way.
No, please, no one watch my TikTok.
It's all right.
That's what I would like.
I don't even know what that is. I know, I know what TikTok is, but I wouldn't know. It's just about dancing, right? I don't want to dance. There's too much strife going on in the world right now to dance. The podcast is basically going to be talking about stand-up comedy here at the ACC and the different comics that come through town. And I don't know, man. It has been a weird ride since we've been back. It's like doing stand-up in the Kurt Russell film, Escape from New York.
Yeah.
If anyone knows what I'm talking about. It's like there's a killer virus out there that you can't see in the air. There's race riots happening. There's corrupt police. And then we're down here in the basement doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah, it's all going wrong, and we're talking about our penises down here.
That's the thing. As long as people are laughing, as long as people are having a good time.
Yeah, the crowds have been really good.
Open mics have been good.
Yeah.
Comics from Los Angeles have been driving down for the shows.
Yeah.
Who are you stoked about? ACC has a great,
Michael Shea.
Michael Shea is already sold out. He's going to be in the last part of July. First weekend in July, we're going to have Ian Fiddance.
Ian Fidance.
Fidance. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Next weekend, the shows that we're plugging with this podcast, we're going to have from the goddamn Comedy Jam, Josh Adam Myers coming up this week at the club, along with Josh Potter. He goes on the road with Segura a lot. And then from Kiltony, David Lucas. He'll be here this weekend, along with me and Nathan. But tonight, on this episode of the podcast, our first inaugural episode, we have a very, very strange and unusual circumstance. It's my best friend from the Comedy Store and Comedy Central's Roast Battle, Brian Moses, and his right-hand man, also from the Roast Battle, Jay Light. So we have a great interview coming up with them. Let's toss it to that right now. Here's Brian Moses and Jay Light, ACC All-American Comedy Podcast. All right, stoked to be here with my first guest of the debut American Comedy Company All-American All-Comedy Podcast. Two of my closest friends, one of my oldest friends, and I've known you since 2016. Mm-hmm. That's 4 years. Maybe 2014, right?
Maybe 2014.
I think it was 2014 in South by Southwest. But from Roast Battle on the Comedy Store, Brian Moses and Jay Light. Give them a round of applause, everybody. Yes, thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you. There are several people in the room.
I love it, everybody, when it's it's a group of us. Like 4 of us.
Some people know this. Maybe people in the Midwest don't know this, but Brian is my best friend. We've been known each other since 2007 when we both worked at the Comedy Store. I actually got fired, and I think you replaced me.
Yes, I was that's actually kind of all of my origin stories at the Comedy Store. I replaced you. I replaced Jimmy Pidd up in the Hollywood store.
Jimmy Pidd, classic stoners with great energy.
Yeah.
I have to ask though, Brian, what year did you start, and where was the first place you went up at?
I started, I would say it was the day after Christmas, 2006. And it was at Winston's
in Ocean Beach,
Ocean
California.
Beach.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I've been at Winston's.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice little
It
stage.
still exists. It still exists.
Yeah, Winston's in Ocean Beach, California.
What do you remember about that moment?
That I was sad that James Brown had died, and I think I got a lot of pity, applause, and laughter maybe because I told him it was my first time, and I was doing it because James Brown had died, and they were just like, yeah. It was like 3 guys in there, so they were all like, we love the Godfather of Funk.
James Brown died that day or the day before?
The day before.
On Christmas.
Yeah, he died on Christmas 2006.
Oh man, way to bring down the holiday.
Yeah, he did. And then I turned up the next day. I was a young 20.
How did you do?
It was a good set. Actually, my first couple sets were good. I was just like, comedy, nothing. And then I went up first to the Comedy Store, I think my 3rd or 4th set, and it was a rude awakening. Like I remember bombing so hard, I didn't go back on stage until February 2007, till Black History Month. Yeah.
So I didn't meet you till 2007.
Mm-hmm.
But when? Oh yeah, you were also my roommate. People don't know this. He lived on my couch.
No, it wasn't your roommate. No, I was flopping in your house. Yeah.
You did live on. Well, I'm being generous. You stayed.
Yeah, thank you.
In a room.
Yes.
In my house.
Yes.
So when did you move in? 2008, 2009.
2009ish. Like
when did you move to LA?
April Fool's Day 2010.
Oh,
so I was there for like a little bit of 2009, a little bit of 2010.
What a great day to move.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of your jokes from your first set?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember my first joke was about the mic stand. It was like
oh god.
Yeah, let me move my twin brother out of the way.
My twin.
Yeah. It was very corny.
What about the thing where you said you were going to spray people in the face with mace?
That was like a year in.
It was like a rap.
So I was a big fan of not Howard Kramer, Dragon Boy Suede.
yes.
And I was like, I want to be like the black Dragon Boy Suede. I'll be alternative but black. So I was like, I had like bad punchline jokes, just like really like corny bad jokes. So I was like, I like the punchlines of these. It doesn't matter how I'm saying. It doesn't matter what I'm saying. That's how I'm saying it. So I rap them, and then I do like a real, like, like a normal set in between, and then I like do like a non sequitur rap and like another joke, and then I go back into my act kind of thing. I thought it was alternative. Gordon hated it.
I did. No,
Gordon,
I didn't.
Gordon hated it. He like
curious.
literally, he had like an intervention with me. He was just like, listen, you got to stop doing that. Because I can't respect you as a comic if you're doing that.
And then you got hired once you started doing that. And I also threw out an off-duty retired chief of police.
He's probably racist.
So
Ahead of the curve. Look at that.
That really moved him in for that time. So
yeah, it's like that's the first time. Like you actually beating up a cop helped a black guy.
When do you remember meeting Jay Light? Because I met Jay through you guys in Roast Battle.
It was a bathhouse in West Hollywood,
Yep.
2000, circa 2000.
Prince's Men's Spa, I think. Sounds about right.
No, it was like...
Poke 1.5.
No, that was before the poke craze. So it was like in between that. I think it's called the place called... I don't know. I met Jay at the Comedy Store. He was a friend of ours, Frank Castillo, a friend of the podcast.
The champ.
Frank the Champ.
Podcast. And Jay has the distinguishing honor of being, I think, we were talking about this on the way over here, the only door guy to ever work at both the Comedy Store and Flappers.
Yeah.
Wow.
When I first moved to LA, I worked at Flappers. I replaced Drew Lynch.
Oh, wow.
Who had just figured out how to use his stutter for good.
Nice.
And
Dude, Lynch is popular right now.
He really is.
Before the shutdown, I did a corporate gig with him. I guess it was like a fucking... It was a whites only.
I'm sorry, I meant lynching. Lynching is popular, not Drew Lynch.
You could probably get a corporate pay for that too.
But you're not from Burbank or Claremont.
No.
Where are you from?
I grew up mostly outside of Dallas, Texas, in between Dallas and Fort Worth. I started comedy.
Waco?
No, Waco's like.
Are you Koreshian?
Mm-mm. I did just regular Christian,
Okay.
Presbyterian, Methodist, somewhere in there.
Seventh
Adventist.
Where'd you start?
I started in North Carolina.
Oh shit, Tar Heels.
Where'd
you go to school there?
I went to school, in this little town in the middle of the state called Burlington. There's a college out there.
Oh, the coat factory.
Yeah, exactly. There was no coat factory out there, though.
Really?
I was shocked.
I'm shocked.
I know. That's when I heard it was in Burlington. I was like, oh, there's going to be the coat factory there.
Yeah.
No coat factory.
Can't wait to get some coats.
Wrong Burlington, I guess.
What?
Wrong
No coats, just racism
That's all we get.
And red
Here in
coat.
Alamance County.
fried chicken. And
Ron
racism.
Burlington.
So where did you go up? What year did you start, and where was it at?
So the first time I ever went on stage was 2008, in October 10th at this place called the Lighthouse Tavern.
Nice.
It was a bar that was like sort of owned by the school, but not 100%.
On campus, off
Yeah,
campus.
it was like off. It was like on the border of campus and non-campus. So a lot of townies went there, but like they had open mic nights and stuff. So I went to an open mic night. A buddy of mine wanted to do. He wanted to play acoustic guitar, and he recruited me to do an acoustic cover of "Hey Ya" by Outkast with him. White confidence for you. But I also I'd been interested in doing stand up. Like I'd been writing jokes with a buddy of mine, Parker Searfoss, shout out.
Hey, your doppelganger.
Yeah, exactly. We'd been writing jokes, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna sign up to do a stand up set, and I did like 10 minutes.
First time 10 minutes.
First time 10 minutes.
Oof, Jesus.
It was. I had a sort of similar experience. It was like surprisingly not terrible. I think there was probably some pity laughter in there. And then the next several times I did it after that, just dog shit, just total, like dark night of the soul, getting crushed. And I didn't really consistently do it because of that, like the fear of continuing to bomb for like 2 years after that.
But you were also.
What's the theme here, Gordon?
You were also heavily into partying, though, right?
Yeah, but that wasn't really.
That wasn't a deterrent.
That wasn't the deterrent. No, that was a thing that like I think that's just college.
You just
know?
wanted to go. You were just going to Bonnaroo.
Yeah, I just went to fucking Bonnaroo.
Non-stop.
Bonnaroo. I was in the frat houses. You know.
You were making your rounds, yeah.
Yeah,
Wait.
exactly.
What frat?
I was a Pi Cap.
Oh man.
Oh,
Yeah.
blood. Nice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Pyru.
Blood in, blood out.
That is a different kind of gang.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing they made you do?
I mean,
Drink like.
Sleep with Crystalia.
Oh, okay, I thought we weren't going to talk about that.
they
Only when it comes
they
to
didn't have to
men.
make me do that. I asked for that. All right.
Yeah.
I slid into the
Hey,
DMs.
hey,
I was
bro,
the
hey,
name on the
bro,
board.
hey, bro, that's a fucking wig. Get out of the green room.
Are we going to get
Hey,
canceled
bro.
for this?
Hey, bro. Hey, bro, what's that thing in your fucking neck? It's an Adam's apple, Chris.
I got one of those too.
Bro, get out of here. Mike, get this guy out of here.
Mike.
I love you guys. So when did you move to LA?
So I moved to LA 2012, August 2012.
4 years later. So were you doing
My
stand-up
calendar.
in North Carolina?
Yeah, I didn't really start taking it seriously
A
until
couple of times a month.
Yeah, once I started like my junior year, I started
So you're
actually
still-
like doing
you're going
it,
to
like
school. Okay.
yeah, I was going to school, and Burlington's in the middle of the nowhere in the state, so I had to drive to go
It's
to
between
How
Ross
far-
and
how
TJ
far-
Exactly.
Maxx.
Yeah.
How far from Chapel Hill?
about 45 from
That's
Chapel
not
Hill.
that bad. Then.
40, yeah, like 45 to Chapel Hill, half an hour to Greensboro. There are clubs in both those cities, so I would do
Yeah,
that.
I would go to Chapel Hill more than Greensboro.
Well,
I
Greensboro,
don't-
probably has more
I
clubs,
don't
right?
know.
Greensboro had a better club.
Right.
Really?
Chapel Hill had an improv theater that they would do stand-up at like once a month. And eventually they started doing indie shows at bars and shit that I was able to get in the rotation for.
Can't
and then
cradle, baby.
I wasn't able to get into the rotation of what's the club in Raleigh? Good Nights. I wasn't able to figure
Oh,
out
yeah,
how
Mr.
Good
Good
Nights
Nights.
worked until like I almost had moved out of being in North Carolina.
Wasn't there a comic in L.A. who had a cowboy hat? His name was Mr. Goodnight or something like that.
Yeah,
Mr. Goodnight. Yeah. He's
Mr.
cool.
Goodnight.
Mr.
I
Goodnight.
remember you tore him an asshole at an open mic one night.
I wasn't me.
That
I like
was
that
you.
guy.
Yeah, and you felt bad. You apologized to him afterwards.
Mr. Goodnight?
Yes.
What was
You
this?
said something to him. You said you were mean to him. It's like a
What?
It was at Josh's old open mic at the cafe, one off Hollywood Boulevard.
Are we sure that's Mr. Goodnight I was talking to
Yeah,
or
it was
somebody
a
else?
cowboy hat, yeah.
That
was a
sucks.
while
Oh,
back.
if he's listening, I'm sorry, Mr.
It was
Goodnight.
it
I
was
would
definitely
never.
a while back, but you
Yeah,
were
but
joking.
no, we've always been friends.
You were
yeah.
you went off and you were joking though, and you're like, I went too far.
I mean, we've always been good. Yeah, he's never brought that up.
Speaking of going too far,
You gonna bring up Crystalia again?
no, that I don't think there's a lot to talk about. I think what I want to know is because you were here, Moses was here during the soft opening about a month ago, so you actually have done a set in the post-COVID world.
I have in the dystopian future. Yeah.
That's right. How did that? I mean, and we're doing this podcast before the show tonight. Juneteenth, happy Juneteenth, Moses.
Thank
and,
you.
Jay Light.
Thank you.
And
Nathan.
you too.
Yes,
Gordon.
of course.
Nathan,
I brought it up. So
Happy Emancipation Day, everybody. We're all free.
how does it feel? Because you guys
To be
are-
free as a black man.
You guys do. You guys do a lot of spots at the store and places in LA, and you've been. This is probably the longest break, not even a self-imposed break. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
How does it feel getting ready to do a show tonight? You know what I mean? You haven't done a show in a few weeks, a few months. Moses.
Anxious.
Really?
Yeah. If everybody here is listening at home, it's been anxious. Like we don't have an outlet as performing artists. Like all we have is the social media of it all. Your Twitters, your Facebooks, your journal, right? If you're writing a script or something like that. Like all you have are those kind of outlets. You can't just go on the street and be some kind of street preacher. You know what I mean?
Right.
Unless you're crazy. I mean, you can, but you're still not going to get your. I think you're going to get your proper.
It's not the same
point of view across, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get what you want out of that workout. So this is what's happening right now. Coming down to San Diego and doing, how much every time we're doing. It's anxiety ridden. We don't know how it's going to go because we don't know how the crowd's going to be either. So for the most part, it's almost like we're the bull and they're the matador, or vice versa. I feel like it's not the same thing as like everything being open, people coming in and judging you. I think everybody's just like, we want to have a good time. Hopefully, it's all going to work out because they're all coming here to have a good time, not to really judge. I feel like
it's going to be a small ass show.
Yeah,
right.
Intimate, and I think like the way I started, especially in San Diego and Hollywood, it's always been small crowds. So I thrive in those. So I'm looking forward to it.
My favorite shows have always been for small crowds or instead of big crowds. Anyway, I feel like I also feel very, very nervous and anxious in a way that I haven't in a very long time to do stand up.
Are you anxious about the performance, or are you anxious about contracting coronavirus? Or a little bit of both.
Probably a little bit. I mean, I was gonna get the bat tenders. Are those? How do we feel about those? Are those all right off the menu? Yeah.
Well, they're cooked. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not raw bat.
Well, that's what they say. I mean, they said that bat was
they
cooked in
cook
wet
it
market.
right out
bat
of them.
sushimi.
They cook it right out of them.
I'm nervous about the muscle memory because I have a couple of new jokes that I've written. I've not performed them in a situation like this at an actual show, and the last time I did a set at all was March 15th. It's been a long fucking time.
Well, just
you know what it's like, Gordon.
What?
It's like being a brand new cop, right, from the training academy, and you're in a crowd full of black guys who are socially distanced, and you don't know which one to attack.
Right.
Just so you guys know, for those of you listening at home, I am also black. So if you're getting offended,
yes, don't let
turn your white guilt down.
That's not a scarf. That is a face mask.
It's an ascot.
It's
I'm better than you niggas.
So, I mean, it's a real spaced out show. We're going to have maybe 40 people in there, maybe a little bit less than that, but it's a weekend show. What do you think the future of stand-up comedy? What do you think is in store for the future of stand-up comedy in clubs,
I think it's going to be a while before everything can get back to like full capacity and being
of course,
open.
a vaccine.
So
there's have to be strides in scientific medicine,
Right.
But I think that people want to get out of the house, people want to be entertained, and as long as they can do that safely, I think that comedy will wind up being fine once clubs can start to open up a little bit more. It's great that that ACC's been able to be open.
First
even
club on
just
the
for a
West
couple
Coast,
weeks.
baby.
Yeah.
I just feel like that because of all the social distancing of being indoors in like a nightclub, stand-up comedy for the club scene won't be the same. I even think after the vaccine is had, I think this is going to be a catch-up moment for all the alternative venues, right? Like your backyard shows, right? Your small black box theater shows. I think those become more the norm now than they used to be. And then the club kind of has to pivot and figure out exactly what they want to do. Are they become like a house of streaming?
Yeah.
Right? Because they have the marketing, and they might reach a broader base through that because they'll have a small enough audience, like a studio audience in a sense, to like stream something if a guy's going to do something on stage, as opposed to you're not going to make your money as a comic coming to the clubs.
Right.
So I don't know if the clubs are going to survive doing that.
I think
because local talent isn't going to drag you through a whole fiscal year.
I think stand-up is going to change because comics have to change.
Right.
Comics are going to have to, and they already have, if they're any worth their salt, to start to adapt to that anyway once COVID hit. And I think comedy in clubs and comedy in shows of bar shows or backyard shows or secret shows. I think secret shows are going to come up huge soon. You're going to start
like
getting,
raves in the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have, and then in another 10 years we'll have a ghost ship fire again. It'll be
My
a
God.
stand-up gig.
Way to bring up the ghost ship. That is on the opposite side of this state
But
Way up there.
I think stand-up will come back, but it will be different. And comics, I think, will be different too as a byproduct of that. That's the other thing is like we live in such a like the anxiety of performing is also coupled with the anxiety of just like existing in a very anxious time in the world.
It's a very anxious time.
It's a very anxious time to be.
Everybody wants to be mad. It feels like it's like a lot of civil wars happening between black and white, male and female. It's like nobody on either side seems to be happy, and I don't think I've really seen that in any movement. Like usually one side is happy. Neither side is happy.
It is like doing stand-up in a dystopian world. This is a future where there's an invisible virus that can kill you out there. There's race riots going on. There's horrible police officers in every major and small American city. It is a weird time to be alive and to try to convince a room full of strangers to laugh.
1,000%.
But that's why we do this. And that's why you've adapted, I think, and that's one of the reasons we're doing the podcast now is to bring our comedy and comics that come from out of town down here to other parts of the country and to people who can't make it down to the club. But you guys have taken Roast Battle, which used to happen Tuesday nights in the Belly Room at the Hollywood Comedy Store, formerly on air at Comedy Central Mondays in the fall of 2018, right? Did I nail that? Tuesdays. God damn it. But now that the store has shut down, you guys are doing a live broadcast of the Roast Battle from where is it? What's the name of the studio and what time does
Better
it come up?
Box TV, sponsored by the Speedweed guys. It's every Friday. We put it on Twitch, Periscope, and YouTube.
Yep.
So you can catch it whenever on YouTube. If you're a fan of Roast Battle, subscribe, please.
Yeah.
And you can catch a lot of content. We put a lot of videos out. We put a lot of clips on our social media.
Yep.
We have such a catalog from the 6 years we've been doing it. I mean, you can literally just download Verbal Violence, go to verbalviolence.tv, and you can get everything Roast Battle.
Yeah, we're putting stuff up every week. You know, classic battles from the archive, best of compilations, and then of course these new stream battles every week.
Do you know who's going to be the live battlers for next Friday?
I think it's Frank and Omid, right?
I think it is
Oh,
Frank
wow.
Hestia and Meat Singh. Yeah, if not, I mean, it'll be somebody else dope. If you're a fan of the show, you'll know the veterans. Almost like battle rap.
How long is each episode?
About
10, 15 minutes?
Yeah, if that. Yeah,
So it's like
they're short clips.
Oh, so it's a Quibi.
Yeah, it's a Quibi.
It's a Quibi.
Yeah, Quibi. If you're listening, if you haven't got under yet, you can subscribe and buy to us.
I'm sure Quibi is listening. They have nothing else to do right now.
Well, Quibi's so broke they have an OnlyFans page now.
Are you serious?
No, I'm kidding.
Big J has an OnlyFans page.
Yeah, so does Luis J. Gomez. All the skanks guys do. Asian skanks. But it's
Would
like
you ever-
here. By the way, we thought Roast Battle. We thought about doing an OnlyFans page just so people know what the fuck is going on in the
Well,
streets.
you do have
We thought
people.
about it.
You do have
We had
battlers.
Patreon, but we were going to do OnlyFans because we thought it was funny because all the
we're like,
escorts
this
and
sounds
porn stars
great.
are doing OnlyFans.
Yeah.
We're like, we'll be on that same way. I'm like, that's funny. It's easier to promote that way because people are like, oh, these guys are funny. They have an OnlyFans. They must be showing their dicks. Right. But no, it's OnlyFans takes 20%.
Ugh.
That's like more than a manager or an agent or a fucking pimp.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not giving you that
And
OnlyFans.
you guys do have battlers that have
OnlyFans pages.
Well, that have been in porn or burlesque performers.
We've had everybody.
Yeah.
That's right.
It can't just stop there. I mean, I think
Professional
Roast Battle is kind of a
athletes.
great microcosm of what the Great Experiment can be. And the Great Experiment is America, right? So it's all these cultures. Roast Battle kind of just gives you everything. We've had people who are HIV positive, people who are trans men, trans women, non-binary, male, female, black, white, alien, all the things, you know.
Handicappable.
Shitty person, good person, cerebral palsy, all the above,
Yep.
right? Ex-convicts, everything. So, I mean, literally anything you can think of has been on a microphone consenting to talking shit to another individual that they're consenting to.
Right.
And at the end, nobody's ever fought. They've always hugged. And they've always become friends.
But the first battle originated from
A fight.
a slap box.
We wanted them to slap box. I personally wanted them to slap box. I come from a skateboard background, so I really wanted them to slap box. But there was cameras in the belly room at that time, and I didn't want to lose that open mic. So I said, how about you guys just talk shit, and all of us in the room will treat it like a boxing match.
And what happened to those two guys now?
Well, they're both unemployed because the world's unemployed.
Right.
So, I don't know where they are right now.
They made a top 10. They made a 100 list or something. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I want to be on that list. Let me ask you guys.
100 guys, Crystalia
We
wouldn't
have
fuck.
to start.
Yeah.
We have to get some bat wings and some drinks into us before the show starts. But
Bat wing stop.
one of the things that us comedians have had to deal with in this post-COVID world of stand-up comedy. Zoom comedy shows.
Oof.
Have you done a Zoom show?
I did one Zoom show.
Listen to that sound in his voice.
I did.
Talk about it.
I had I do every once in a while. I'm a sober person.
That's right.
So I do
Jay.
some rehab shows, some
respect you.
sobriety kind of shows.
Zane, yeah.
I did one. Well, there's one we'll have to edit out for later.
Oh, really? Oh, man. My bad. No, I'm
Nah,
good.
it's all
I'm
good.
down here. I don't know what's going on up to 405.
No.
All right, but talk about this Zoom
But
show
I
you
did I did one as a favor for him,
Okay,
and
cool.
because he has been, that was his business, and he was trying to keep it going, so that I got booked to do a Zoom rehab show, and it was, rehab shows already are rough. Rehab shows, you're dealing with people who are like sometimes actively detoxing, or they're dealing with a whole bunch of shit besides
baggage.
the things that like fed their addictions,
Let
and
alone
their
the
mental
Zoom.
shit. Yeah, so sometimes the rehab show can be a little dicey, but generally they're like down. But this time it was just like a bunch of it was people in a room, like probably the size of this room that we're recording the podcast in, but they were all sat as far back away from the camera as possible. They were teenagers and they weren't paying any fucking attention.
Oh, nice.
So I was just like, well, this is probably what a lot of Zoom shows are going to be like, and I will feel this way regardless, no matter what. So
What's going to happen is, though, I feel like as this, I don't want to say quarantine because the quarantine's over, people are still supposed to be quarantining sort of, but I think it's just going to create a new division of comics where there's bringer shows, now there's Zoom shows. I even saw someone doing a Zoom bringer open mic, and I was like, how is that even possible?
That's insane to
That's
combine
real.
all three of those things.
It's a real
Crazy.
thing. What do you think about Zoom? I know your opinion
Yeah,
already.
it doesn't boost the art form.
No, it's
If
not.
anything, it really brings it down to a point where if anybody's sitting in a chair, watching you sitting in a chair tell jokes, they can think they're doing the same thing.
right.
It's kind of the same thing that a lot of gamers have, but like gamers are so skilled at it, people are like, okay, I'll watch that and I can probably become that.
Yeah.
But if they're watching Zoom shows and you telling jokes and you're bombing, they're gonna be like, I can do this. I'll start my own Zoom show.
Mm-hmm.
So really, what we're doing is we're creating more shitty comics.
And you lose.
Not we.
So yeah, I've never done one. I've been asked, and shout out to the
They're-
guys who are trying to keep their money flowing for the most part, but
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of it. So
Nah.
Start a
I stay out
podcast,
of
start
it.
a Patreon, start an OnlyFans.
Thank you.
This-
OnlyFans. Yeah, sell your nudes.
Do a
OnlyFans,
drive
at
up.
least there's a
Bros.
human connection, right? You
Yeah.
know who you're sending your dick or
Yeah.
your pussy to.
What?
That's the one pussy I'm allowed to say on the show. But yes, Zoom shows, there's no human contact. You don't have the human connection element. Like even with the live stream roast battle show, we're doing it. It's quarantine compliant, but we're doing it with battlers in person, right?
Yeah.
We have people in the room who you can see and hear and like.
And then people can comment on Twitch and stuff, so
Yeah.
it's active. It's not passive,
Right.
so
you're
It's a little
getting
more in your face. Yeah.
the live reaction. It's
And-
like the tension of being in the room with somebody else and like telling and talking to them. And
it's
having
an
a
extension
conversation.
of the Tuesday night broadcast too, because those were fun.
Those are fun. And listen, I'm not gonna front. We're missing a lot of what makes the roast battle great, which is the energy of the fans.
Yeah.
These are just jokes that may or may not land in the room with nobody there. So it's really open to interpretation for what they're saying to each other, but at least they're in each other's faces. As far as Zoom is concerned, you're not even in the room with people. Like I've seen Zoom roast battles even, it's
Yeah.
and it's literally it's people talking into a computer it's I don't know what that is.
It's lower than a TED
It's
Talk.
a vacuum.
Yeah,
It is a
yeah.
vacuum.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. And I don't know why comics are so thirsty to be like, you got to see me and I got to make these $5.
I think it's the ego, it's the id that people, we waited until the club to open up, and now we have an audience. But you guys also have another podcast. Let's plug that before we wrap up. What is the new podcast you guys have? What's it called?
It's out of context. So we're basically it's a play on what happens to a lot of podcasting, where like people just kind of will take a clip and they'll just put it out of context of like what the whole conversation was. So we've basically made a whole podcast on just being out of context. You can't even whatever we're talking about, you're not gonna be able to peg it on us because we're just kind of talking.
Mm-hmm. That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
The whole thing's out of context.
Yeah.
How many episodes do you guys have so far?
We've done
400 years.
Yeah, our 8th one's about to come out.
Oh, nice.
That's the next one. We're we only do every other. If you want to get all the episodes, it's all on Patreon. We drop every other episode to the public feed.
Nice. And you have nudes on there too, right?
Yeah.
No, Patreon doesn't take 20%. All right, we're about Patreon, but we can't show nudes on Patreon.
tasteful nudes.
We will get that drawing that got commissioned of Frank's ass, and we'll put that on.
I
That's
saw
not bad.
that. I saw that.
Strangers' bodies. Shout out.
Any
Strangers'
last
Bodies.
thoughts before we get ready for the show? Now we're gonna start drinking. He's gonna get some food.
Yeah.
Anything you want to shout out on Juneteenth?
Juneteenth? Yeah. Shout out all my niggas who are free. It's been a long time. Let's go get this money.
What about you?
Nope.
Do you guys have any shows? Do you guys have any? Do you guys have any shows coming up in July that you need to plug?
I got nothing. I got a podcast to check that out. Blockbusting.
Oh yeah, you're
Talk shit about
blockbusting.
movies.
Blockbusting.
I've had both Moses and Gordon on that show. Talk shit about movies. I'm doing some new stuff with that. Also courtesy of Better Box. So check that out, and then I'll figure out shows. And I got my album coming out in like July.
Hell yeah, you do.
So
Yeah.
that'll be good. So
I'm trying to get you back for an album release show.
yeah, sounds good.
No, I'm just doing a show on Juneteenth at the American Comedy Company at 8 p.m.
right.
So if you can make it down, everybody, get a time machine and come on down.
We made it. We're gonna do it. Thank you to Brian Moses and Jay Light for coming down and being a guest, the inaugural guest on the ACC All-American All Comedy Podcast. Thanks for listening, guys. Black Lives Matter. We're out.